The town of Havenwood was quiet, too quiet. A week ago it was a normal place. Kids rode their bikes down Maple Street. The smell of fresh bread came from the bakery. Now an eerie silence hung in the air like a thick fog. No cars moved, no birds sang. It was as if someone had pressed a giant pause button on the entire town. Every single house was locked up tight. The curtains were drawn. It had been like this for 7 days, a whole week of absolute bone-chilling silence. What had happened to everyone? The silence wasn't the only strange thing. All the phones were dead. Not just the landlines, but every single cell phone. The internet was gone too. No emails, no news, no way to call for help. The town was completely cut off from the outside world, like a lonely island in a sea of nothing. Imagine trying to call your friend and all you hear is a dead, empty sound. Imagine trying to check a website and seeing only a blank screen. It was like Havenwood had vanished from the modern world, thrown back into a time before technology existed. This eerie stillness was what greeted Detective Jake Riley. He had driven his car to the edge of town, but a strange, invisible barrier stopped it from going any further. The engine just died, so he walked. He walked down the middle of the street, his footsteps echoing loudly in the quiet. He saw a child's tricycle lying on its side on a perfectly green lawn. A newspaper, a week old, sat on a porch step, untouched. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. It wasn't cold, it was the feeling of being in a place where something was very, very wrong. As he walked deeper into Havenwood, he noticed them. At first it was just one. A strange symbol painted on the door of the post office. It looked like a spiral with a single unblinking eye in the center. Then he saw another on the wall of the library, and another on the side of a fire hydrant. They were everywhere, drawn in what looked like dark red paint. They were fresh. Someone or something had been busy while the town slept. These symbols seemed to be watching him, guarding the secrets of the silent houses. Jake pulled out his notepad. His hand trembled slightly as he tried to copy the strange symbol. The spiral seemed to twist on the page, and the eye in the middle felt like it was looking right back at him. What did it mean? He had been a detective for 15 years, seen all sorts of strange things, but this was different. This wasn't a normal case. The symbols weren't just random graffiti, they felt ancient, powerful. Each one was identical, perfectly drawn. Who could have painted so many so quickly without anyone seeing? It was a puzzle with too many missing pieces. He moved from building to building, his boots crunching on the deserted pavement. The town felt like a giant museum where all the people had been replaced by these creepy drawings. He found one on the window of the candy store, another on the school's flagpole, and even a tiny one etched onto the handle of a water fountain. The more he found, the more a single terrifying thought grew in his mind. These weren't warnings, they were seals. They were meant to keep something in, or maybe to keep something out. The whole town was a cage. A cold sweat trickled down Jake's neck. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He would stop walking and stand perfectly still, listening. But he heard nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no rustling leaves. Yet the feeling remained. It was like 1,000 invisible eyes were peering at him from behind the dark windows of the houses. He felt like an actor on a stage, performing for an unseen audience. Every move he made, every note he took was being observed. The watchers were silent, patient, and everywhere. Jake decided to focus on the clues. He had to be logical. He took pictures of the symbols with his old police camera. He measured them. He noted their locations on his map of the town. But the logic wasn't helping. The mystery only grew deeper. The symbols seemed to hum with a strange energy he couldn't explain. He touched one, painted on the brick wall of the town hall. The paint was still slightly sticky, and it felt cold, unnaturally cold. He snatched his hand back as if he had been burned. This was more than just a case, it was a nightmare. Jake had to try. He had to know if anyone was inside. He walked up the stone path to the first house, a neat blue one with a white picket fence. He knocked on the door. The sound was loud, almost shocking in the silence. "Hello, this is Detective Riley. Is anyone in there?" He waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, nothing. He pressed his ear against the cold wood of the door. He heard no TV, no voices, no movement at all. It was like knocking on a tomb. The house was locked from the inside. He moved to the next house, and the next, and the one after that. The result was always the same. He knocked. He called out. He waited. and only silence answered him. Every single door was locked with a deadbolt from the inside. How could that be? How could an entire town decide to lock themselves in on the same day and never come out? It made no sense. He tried peering through a mail slot and saw only darkness. He tried a window, but the curtains were drawn so tightly that not even a sliver of light could get in or out. The sun began to set, casting long, creepy shadows across the empty streets. The town became even more frightening in the fading light. The symbols on the walls seemed to glow faintly, their red color turning almost black. Jake's feeling of being watched intensified. Now he started to see things. A flicker of movement behind a curtain. A shadow shifting in a dark alleyway. Was it just his mind playing tricks on him, or were the silent residents of Havenwood finally starting to stir? He couldn't be sure, and that was the scariest part. He was all alone, and darkness was falling. His flashlight cut a nervous beam through the gloom. He had checked dozens of houses. He had found hundreds of symbols. He had walked every street, and he was no closer to an answer than when he had first arrived. In fact, he had more questions now than ever before. Why were the houses locked from the inside? Who painted the symbols? And what were the unseen eyes waiting for? The town of Havenwood was holding its breath, and Jake was afraid of what would happen when it finally let it out. As total darkness fell, Jake found himself back in the center of town, standing in the empty square. The moon cast a pale, sickly light over the silent buildings. He looked up at the town hall clock, frozen at 3:14. Had it stopped a week ago or just now? He couldn't tell time anymore. He felt like he was trapped in a single, endless moment of suspense. He decided to take one last look inside the biggest house on the square, the mayor's mansion. The front door was, of course, locked, but a small window on the side was slightly ajar. With a grunt, he managed to slide the window open and climb inside. The air in the house was stale and cold. His flashlight beam danced across dusty furniture covered in white sheets like sleeping ghosts. He moved cautiously through the silent rooms, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hello?" he whispered, but his voice was swallowed by the oppressive quiet. Then he saw it. On the wall of the main living room, there wasn't just one symbol, there were dozens, all overlapping, forming a giant, terrifying pattern. And in the center was a phrase, scrawled in the same red paint. "They are awake." Suddenly he heard a sound, a faint rhythmic tapping. It wasn't coming from inside the house, it was coming from all the houses. Tap, tap, tap. It started slowly, then grew louder and faster. It was the sound of hundreds of fingers tapping on hundreds of windows all at once. Jake froze, his blood turning to ice. The watchers were no longer just watching, they were trying to get his attention. Or maybe they were welcoming him. The tapping echoed through the town, a drumbeat for a ceremony he didn't understand. Jake backed away from the wall, his flashlight shaking wildly. He realized the terrifying truth. He wasn't here to solve the mystery of what happened to the townspeople. He was the final piece of the puzzle. The symbols weren't just seals, they were part of a ritual. The locked doors weren't to keep people in, they were to prepare for something new to arrive. The silence wasn't emptiness, it was anticipation. And now, as the tapping from every house grew into a deafening roar, Jake understood. The mystery wasn't over. He was standing right in the middle of it, and it was just beginning.